The wind screamed across the barren surface of Taax's 4, carrying ice particles sharp enough to strip skin from bone. Hayden Morrell checked the seals on his environment suit for the third time before stepping out to inspect the solar array. The outpost had never been designed for permanent habitation, just a way station for resource scouts before the consortium abandoned the quadrant after the war. Now it was just him. Alone. Exactly as he preferred. Power levels stable at 42%, he muttered to himself, scraping frost from the panel indicators. Should be enough to get through the night. The sky above was a bruised purple, storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Another bout of the endless winter that gripped this forgotten rock. He'd chosen it for precisely that reason. No one in their right mind would come here. No one would find him. Back inside the prefab shelter, Hayden removed his suit and hung it methodically on its rack. His movements were precise, economical. 5 years of solitude had stripped away any wasted motion, any unnecessary words. He poured himself a mug of synthesized coffee, the machine humming and sputtering, one of the few sounds that broke the silence these days. Along the wall hung his service medals, gathering dust. 15 years as a fleet engineer during the Boundary Wars, ending with a dishonorable discharge after the incident at Cygnus Station. The official report had called it disobeying direct orders in a combat situation. What they'd meant was that he'd refused to sabotage life support systems on a civilian vessel, even when ordered to. He'd saved 300 lives and lost his career. A fair trade, though the nightmares still came. The storm arrived faster than expected. Within an hour, visibility dropped to 0. The shelter's outer shell groaned under the assault, and Hayden ran another systems check, more out of habit than necessity. He'd weathered worse storms than this. The proximity alert chirped. Hayden froze, coffee mug halfway to his lips. Nothing triggered the proximity alert out here. Nothing ever came this way. He pulled up the external camera feed. Snow and darkness. He switched to thermal imaging. 3 heat signatures, huddled against the main door. What the hell, he whispered, reaching for the pulse pistol he kept near the console. He hadn't discharged it in years, but the weight felt familiar in his hand. The shelter's communication system crackled. Please, a voice strained through the static. We need shelter. Children are freezing. Hayden's jaw tightened. His finger tapped against the pistol grip as he weighed his options. He hadn't spoken to another sentient being in over a year. He liked it that way. The voice came again, weaker. Please. He cursed under his breath and moved to the airlock. The outer door opened with a hydraulic hiss and the storm roared in, bringing with it 3 figures who collapsed onto the metal floor. As the door sealed shut behind them, Hayden raised his weapon, training it on the largest of the 3, clearly an adult, though not human. Her skin was a deep indigo blue, almost violet where it stretched across high cheekbones. White hair, matted with ice and snow, fell past her shoulders. But it was her eyes that caught him off guard, large, luminous, and golden, with no visible pupils. A Navorian. He hadn't seen one since the peace treaties. She didn't flinch at the weapon. She merely looked up at him with those unnerving eyes and spoke softly. I can warm your bed, human. My children need shelter. The words were so unexpected, so devoid of emotion, that Hayden nearly laughed. Not from humor, but shock. That won't be necessary, he managed, lowering the pistol slightly. Only then did he notice the children. 2 small figures, clinging to their mother's tattered clothes. The older one, perhaps 7 or 8 by human standards, had the same blue skin but with a greenish tint at the joints. The smaller child couldn't have been more than 4, her skin was lighter, almost periwinkle, and she trembled violently. Their feet, Hayden said, noticing the bare blue toes, tinged with purple. Frostbite. How long have you been out there? 2 days, the woman answered, her voice hollow. Walking since the transport crashed. The smaller child looked up, wide golden eyes blinking slowly. Mama said someone nice would help us. Her voice was thin, musical. Are you nice, mister? Hayden didn't answer. He wasn't nice. He wasn't cruel. He just was. You have food? The older child asked, trying to sound demanding but failing through chattering teeth. Hayden holstered his weapon and moved to the heating unit, turning it up to maximum output. Get them by the heat, he ordered the woman. I'll get something warm. As the Navorian guided her children toward the heater, Hayden watched their cautious movements. The woman never turned her back to him. The boy kept himself between Hayden and his sister. They were frightened, but not just of him. They had the look of prey that had been hunted too long. He heated some protein broth, better than nothing, and brought it to them in metal mugs. Drink slowly, he warned, keeping his distance. Too fast and you'll get sick. The woman accepted her mug with a nod but didn't drink until he stepped away. My name is Thessa, she said finally. These are my children, Jorith and Niva. Hayden grunted in acknowledgement. Hayden. This isn't a settlement. Just an outpost. Not equipped for guests. We won't stay long, Thessa replied, her eyes downcast. Just until the storm passes. Unless... She glanced up at him, a question in her golden eyes. Unless what? Unless you wish us to stay longer. Her voice was measured, careful. I can be useful. Hayden felt his stomach twist. I don't need anything from you except peace and quiet, he said firmly. You can sleep by the heater tonight. When the storm breaks, we'll figure out where you need to go. He walked to his narrow bunk and pulled out a spare thermal blanket, military issue, like everything else he owned, and tossed it toward them. The little girl, Niva, caught it with surprising dexterity. Thank you, mister, she said sullenly. Hayden, he corrected, uncomfortable with the formality from a child. Harden, she repeated, testing the name. You have lines on your face. She pointed to the long scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Did someone hurt you? Niva, her mother hissed. Don't question our host. It's fine, Hayden said, though it wasn't. Yes, someone hurt me. A long time ago. The girl nodded as if this explained everything. Mama has hurts too, but you can't see them. Thessa quickly wrapped a blanket around both children, hushing them. Hayden retreated to his workstation, pretending to check the communications array. There was no point, no transmissions ever came through, but it gave him something to do, somewhere to look other than at the three unexpected intruders who had shattered his carefully constructed isolation. Later, when the children had fallen asleep, he found Thessa still awake, sitting guard over them. Her posture was rigid, eyes alert despite her obvious exhaustion. You should sleep, he told her. I'll sleep when they are safe, she replied. They are safe here. The words surprised him as much as her. She studied him for a long moment. Perhaps they are, she conceded. But old habits remain. Hayden understood that better than most. What happened to you? The transport crash doesn't explain why you're out here in the middle of nowhere with no supplies. Thessa's gaze drifted to her sleeping children. We were running, she said simply. From my people. From their laws. Your people abandoned this sector after the treaties. Not abandoned. Retreated. Regrouped. Her voice grew bitter. And made new rules for the survivors. Hayden didn't press further. Everyone had secrets. His were buried in classified reports and nightmares. Hers were etched in the wariness of her children's eyes. Get some rest, he said finally. Storm won't break until morning at the earliest. As he moved toward his own bunk, her voice stopped him. I meant what I said earlier, she said softly. About being useful. I won't be a burden. Hayden turned back to her. I don't need a servant. Or anything else. Just to take care of your kids. For the first time, something like surprise flickered across her face. Then a ghost of a smile. You are an unusual human, Hayden Morrill. He didn't ask how she knew his full name. Probably read it off the station log when they entered. And you're trespassing on private property, he countered, but there was no heat in his words. We'll call it even. That night, listening to the soft breathing of three strangers in his shelter, Hayden realized his ritual had been broken. For the first time in years, he'd gone a full day without reaching for the bottle of synthetic whiskey hidden under his bunk. He wasn't sure if that was progress or just distraction. Either way, as the storm raged outside, the silence inside had been replaced by something else. Something he hadn't realized he'd forgotten, the sound of other people living. Morning on Taxis 4 wasn't so much a sunrise as a gradual lessening of darkness. The perpetual cloud cover filtered the distant sun into a diffuse grey glow that barely distinguished day from night. The storm had subsided to a steady snowfall, blanketing the shelter in pristine white. Hayden woke with a start, his hand automatically reaching for his weapon before he remembered his visitors. He sat up slowly, surprised he'd slept at all. Across the room, Thessa was already awake, her golden eyes reflecting the dim light as she watched him. "You talk in your sleep," she said quietly. Hayden's jaw tightened. "Bad habit. You called out for someone named Elias." He swung his legs over the side of his bunk, avoiding her gaze. "My brother. He's dead." The words came out flat, practiced. Thessa didn't offer condolences or press further. Instead, she simply nodded and turned her attention to her children, who were still sleeping, curled together like nestlings under the thermal blanket. Hayden moved to the small kitchen unit and activated the synthesizer. "Coffee," he offered, more out of ingrained politeness than genuine hospitality. "Water would be better," she replied. "My species doesn't process stimulants well." He filled a mug with purified water and brought it to her. Their fingers brushed as she took it, and he noted how cool her skin felt, several degrees below human normal. Navorians evolved for colder climates, he remembered from his military briefings. Which made their near-frostbitten state when they arrived even more concerning. "Your little one's feet," he said, gesturing toward Niva. "They need treatment." Thessa's face darkened. "Oh no. I wrapped them with what I had, but..." She trailed off, her shoulders slumping slightly. "We had to leave everything behind when we fled." Hayden retrieved the medkit from his storage locker and knelt beside the sleeping children. Joritha's eyes snapped open immediately, alert and wary. The boy shifted, placing himself between Hayden and his sister. "It's okay," Hayden said, keeping his voice level. "I'm going to help with her feet." Jorith didn't move. "I can do it." Hayden considered the boy's determined expression and handed him the Regan gel. "Apply it generously. Wrap with these after." He demonstrated the proper technique on his own hand, then stood back. As Jorith tended to his sister with surprising competence, Hayden turned to Thessa. "The storm's letting up. Where were you headed?" She sipped her water slowly. "Away. Just away. That's not a destination. It is when what you're leaving is worse than the unknown." Hayden studied her expression. There was no self-pity there, just a cold certainty that unnerved him. "You mentioned your people's laws," he prompted. Thessa set down her mug. "Navorians believe in soul bonding. When we choose a mate, it's not just physical or emotional. Something deeper connects us." She touched her chest, just above her heart. "When my bondmate Kevan died in the war, that connection was severed. I became incomplete." "Widowed," Hayden supplied. "No." Her voice hardened. "To be widowed implies continued respect, continued place. What I became was Vashanti, broken vessel. Unsuitable for society, dangerous to the collective harmony." Her golden eyes flashed. "Especially since I had borne children to my bondmate." Niva stirred, yawning widely to reveal small pearlescent teeth. "Mama," she mumbled, blinking sleep from her eyes. Thessa's expression instantly softened. "I'm here, little star." The child spotted Hayden and offered a sleepy smile. "Hello, line-face man." Despite himself, Hayden's mouth twitched. "Morning, kid." "My feet don't hurt now," she announced, wriggling her toes as Jorith finished applying the bandages. "Good," Hayden replied. "Keep them wrapped today. No walking around." Jorith looked up at him. "Will we leave today?" There was something in the boy's tone, not hope for departure, but resignation. As if he'd grown accustomed to brief respites followed by more running. Before Hayden could answer, the shelter's alarm system blared. All four of them froze. "Proximity alert," Hayden explained, moving swiftly to the console. "Something's approaching." Thessa gathered her children close, her body tense. "Is it them? Have they found us already?" "Not sure." Hayden activated the perimeter scanners. "Small vehicle, single occupant. Coming from the North Ridge." He frowned at the readings. "It's Bryn." "Who?" "Supply runner. Comes by every few months with essentials. Hayden checked the calendar display and cursed under his breath. I forgot she was due today. Tessa's face paled to a lighter shade of blue. Will she report us? Hayden considered this. Bryn wasn't consortium, she operated independently, trading with the few scattered inhabitants of the outer planets. But she also wasn't one to pass up valuable information. Get in the storage room, he decided quickly. Stay quiet until I figure out if she's trustworthy. As Thessa hurried her children into the small adjoining compartment, Hayden cleared away evidence of their presence, the extra mugs, the medkit. He was just stowing the thermal blanket when the exterior hatch chimed. Bryn entered like a gust of wind, all energy and noise after the shelter's prolonged silence. She was a stocky human woman with close-cropped grey hair and weathered brown skin, dressed in layers of practical insulation. Moral. Still alive, I see. She stomped snow from her boots, grinning. Thought the storm might have finally done you in. Takes more than bad weather, Hayden replied, accepting her offered handshake. Got your usual order, plus some extras. She began unloading containers from her pack. Protein packs, synth spirits, power cells, and she paused, sniffing the air. You wearing perfume these days, Moral? Hayden tensed. What? Smells like a... I don't know. Different. She narrowed her eyes, scanning the shelter. You got company. There was no point lying. Bryn had survived 20 years in the outer sectors by being observant. Refugees, he admitted. Storm brought them in last night. Bryn's hand moved subtly toward her hip, where Hayden knew she kept an ion pistol. Off-worlders. Navorians. A mother and 2 kids. Her eyebrows shot up. Navorians. Out here? That's trouble, Moral. Big trouble. They are no threat. Just running from something. Or someone, Bryn countered. Their kind don't leave their territories without reason, especially not since the treaties. She lowered her voice. There's word that internal purges are happening. Something about purity of essence after their losses in the war. Hayden's stomach clenched. They can come out, he called toward the storage room. It's okay. The door slid open and Thessa emerged, her children half hidden behind her. She stood tall, but Hayden could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands subtly shielded her children. Well, Brent said, studying them. Long way from the homeworlds, aren't you? We seek no trouble, Thessa replied formally. Only passage. To where? Anywhere beyond their reach. Bryn glanced at Hayden, something unreadable in her expression. You planning on harboring them, Moral? Because that could bring down heat you don't want. Just until the weather clears, he said, though he wasn't entirely sure why he was lying. The storm had already broken. Bryn seemed unconvinced but nodded slowly. Your funeral. She turned back to Thessa. Why'd they want you gone? Criminal. No. Thessa's voice was steady. My bondmate died. I refused to surrender my children to Clan Fosterage as tradition demands for the Vashanti. The what now? The incomplete. Those whose soul bonds have been severed. Understanding dawned on Bryn's weathered face. Ah. They wanted to take your kids. They wanted to erase me, Thessa corrected. To pretend I never existed, that my children belonged only to their father's lineage. When I refused, I became problematic. Niv appeared around her mother's legs. You have spots on your face, she observed, pointing to Bryn's freckles. Bryn's stern expression softened slightly. And you've got the bluest skin I've ever seen, little bit. Jurith remained silent, watchful. Look, Bryn said after a moment's consideration, I don't need this kind of complication, but I'm not heartless. She dug into her pack and pulled out a data chip. Navigation charts for the outer reaches. There's a settlement on Verdi Station, mixed species, no questions asked. But it's a hard journey, especially with little ones. Thessa accepted the chip with a formal nod. Thank you. Thank me by being gone before anyone comes looking, Bryn replied. After she left, silence hung in the shelter. Hayden busied himself unpacking the supplies, pretending not to notice how Thessa's hands trembled as she clutched the data chip like a lifeline. Your friend is right, she said finally. We should leave. She's not my friend, Hayden corrected. And the next transport to Verdes isn't for 2 weeks. Bryn's the only regular visitor out here. We can't stay that long. We endanger you. Hayden paused, realizing he should agree, should be relieved at the prospect of returning to his solitude. Instead, he found himself saying, the risk is mine to choose. Later, as night fell again, Hayden found Jurith sitting by the viewport, staring out at the vastness of the snow-covered landscape, now illuminated by Taaxis 4's 3 small moons. Can't sleep? Hayden asked, awkwardly offering a mug of warm broth. Jurith accepted it without looking up. On Neva, we have no moons, he said quietly. Just stars and sister planets. You miss it. The boy shrugged. I miss what it was. Before father died. Before mother became Vashanti. He spoke the word with the same bitterness Hayden had heard in Thessa's voice. The elders came to our home. They said she was poison now. Hayden sat beside him, careful to maintain distance. What do you think? Jurith turned to him, golden eyes reflective in the moonlight. I think they were afraid of her grief. It didn't fit their patterns. For a child who couldn't be more than 8, the insight was startling. Hayden nodded slowly. Fear makes people cruel. Is that why you live alone? Fear? Hayden didn't answer immediately. He'd spent 5 years telling himself it was preference, not fear, that kept him isolated. Maybe, he admitted finally. Or maybe I just got tired of people. Jurith seemed to consider this. Mother says you're kind, but your kindness has scars. He sipped his broth carefully. I think she's right. From across the room, Thessa watched the exchange, her expression unreadable in the dimness. When their eyes met, she didn't look away. For the first time in years, Hayden felt seen, truly seen, and the sensation was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. That night, he dreamed not of Cygnus station and death, but of golden eyes and a voice that carried strength despite its softness. He woke unsettled, but not from nightmares. The next morning, he found Thessa outside the shelter, standing barefoot in the snow. Her eyes were closed, face tilted toward the hidden sun. You'll freeze, he said, approaching cautiously. No, she replied without opening her eyes. This is nothing compared to Neva's winters. This is almost pleasant. Hayden stood awkwardly, unsure whether to leave her to her moment of peace. Before he could decide, she spoke again. Why did you let us stay? The question caught him off guard. The storm has passed, she interrupted, finally looking at him. Yet you offered us 2 more weeks. Hayden shifted uncomfortably. It was practical. The next transport. Is that the only reason? Her directness was disarming. Hayden found himself unable to fabricate the easy lie. No, he admitted. Not the only reason. Thessa studied him with those unnerving eyes. You are lonely, Hayden Morrill. I chose solitude, he corrected. Did you? Or did you choose exile, as I did? She stepped closer, her blue skin stark against the white snow. The difference is, I never wanted mine. Something in her words struck too close to truths he'd buried. We should go inside, he said, turning away. Your children will be looking for you. They trust you, she said, following him. Jurith especially, though he tries not to show it. He hasn't trusted anyone since his father died. Hayden paused at the door. I haven't done anything to earn trust. You didn't ask for payment when we arrived, Thessa replied simply. In my experience, that is rare enough to be remarkable. The implications of her words settled heavily between them as they re-entered the shelter. Inside, Niva had discovered Hayden's old service insignia and was tracing the emblems with fascination. Were you a warrior? She asked, eyes wide. Engineer, he corrected, taking the badge gently from her hand. I fixed things. Can you fix us? She asked with childlike directness. So we don't have to run anymore? The question struck him silent. Thessa moved to her daughter's side, stroking her white hair. Some things can't be fixed, little star. Only endured. Or transformed, Hayden found himself saying. 3 pairs of golden eyes turned to him, and he felt the weight of possibilities he'd long ago dismissed settling over him like new snow, cold, but somehow purifying. A week passed in the shelter, each day falling into an unexpected rhythm. Hayden found himself rising earlier, preparing meals for 4 instead of 1, measuring his words more carefully. The silence he'd cultivated for years was breaking down, replaced by the soft patter of Niva's feet, Joritha's thoughtful questions, and Thessa's quiet presence. It should have been uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like remembering how to breathe. "Your power grid is inefficient," Thessa observed on the 8th day, watching as Hayden struggled to reroute energy from the failing southern array. "The auxiliary connectors are degraded." Hayden glanced up from the diagnostic panel. "You know something about engineering." "I worked in atmospheric systems on Neva." "Similar principles, different application." She hesitated, then added, "I could help." He considered her offer. So far, she'd kept to herself, preparing meals with their limited rations, tending to her children. Her eyes followed him sometimes, but she never intruded on his space. Now she was offering expertise. "All right," he said finally, stepping aside. "Show me." Her fingers moved across the console with practiced precision. Hayden watched, impressed despite himself. She wasn't just knowledgeable, she was innovative, reconfiguring pathways he hadn't considered. "Where did you learn this?" he asked. "I wasn't always Vashanti," she replied, her focus still on the panel. "Before the bonding, before children, I had purpose." The grid indicators shifted from amber to green as the power stabilized. "There. That should hold for now, but your solar relays need physical repairs." Hayden nodded. "I've been putting it off. Parts are scarce out here. I noticed components in your storage room that could be repurposed." She stepped back from the console, keeping a respectful distance. "We could modify them." "We?" The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Unless you prefer to work alone." "As always." Something in her tone challenged him. Before he could respond, the shelter's emergency band crackled to life, a sound so unexpected that both of them jumped. "Repeat, all outposts in Sector 7, be advised. Navorian patrol vessel detected entering the quadrant. Approach with caution. These are not friendly visitors. Repeat." The message dissolved into static. Thessa's face had gone pale, her previously steady hands now trembling. "They are looking for us," she whispered. Hayden moved to the communications array, trying to reconnect. "We don't know that." "I do." Her voice had turned hollow. "The High Council doesn't send patrol vessels without purpose, especially not to abandoned sectors." Jorith appeared beside his mother, his young face grave. "We need to run again," he said, not a question but a statement. Hayden felt something heavy settle in his chest. "No," he heard himself say. "No more running." All 3 Navorians stared at him. "They'll find us," Thessa said quietly. "They have trackers, bioscanners." "Not through this." Hayden tapped the shelter's walls. "Old military outpost. Built during the first conflicts. Triple shielded against detection." Hope flickered briefly in Thessa's eyes before doubt clouded them again. "You would risk yourself." "Why?" It was a fair question. One Hayden wasn't entirely sure he could answer. He busied himself at the control panel, activating dormant security protocols. "They hurt my mother," Niva's small voice interrupted his thoughts. She stood clutching her makeshift doll, eyes large and solemn. "The elders." They put their hands on her head and tried to take away her colors. Hayden frowned, not understanding. "Colors?" "Her memories," Thessa explained, her voice tight. "They attempted mind cleansing. To remove my bond memories so I would be suitable for reassignment." The clinical way she described such violation made Hayden's blood run cold. "They can do that." "They tried." Her chin lifted slightly. "I resisted. It's why we had to flee immediately. Resisting the Council's judgment is unprecedented." Hayden thought of the scar on his own face, of a brother who died because he'd followed orders without question, of his own career destroyed because he'd finally refused to. "I understand something about defying authority," he said quietly. He turned back to the console, making a decision. The shield will hide your biosignatures, but we need to be prepared if they land. Jorith, gather the emergency packs from the storage locker. Niva, help your brother. The children moved quickly, recognizing the tone of command. When they were out of earshot, Thessa stepped closer. You know what they'll do if they find you harboring us. Hayden nodded. I've faced worse odds. No. She placed a hand on his arm, the first time she'd deliberately touched him. Her skin was cool against his. You haven't. The Council doesn't just punish. They erase. Everything you are, everything you've done are gone. Some things deserve to be erased, he said, thinking of Cygna Station, of screams that still echoed in his dreams. No, she said firmly. Not even the darkest parts. They make us who we are. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of similar wounds carried differently. The moment shattered as the proximity alarm blared. Hayden pulled up the external scanners, his stomach dropping at the sight of an atmospheric craft descending toward the northern ridge. They are here, he said grimly. Get the children to the hidden storage compartment. Now. As Thessa hurried away, Hayden retrieved his service weapon and checked the charge. 5 years inactive hadn't dulled his muscle memory, the pistol felt like an extension of his hand, familiar and terrible. He'd sworn never to fight again after Cygnus. Never to raise a weapon against another living being. Yet here he was, preparing to do exactly that. For strangers. For a woman with golden eyes and children who asked too many questions. When Thessa returned, her face was composed but her eyes betrayed her fear. They are secure, she said. I've told them to stay silent, no matter what they hear. Hayden handed her a compact ion stunner. Take this. Last resort only. She accepted the weapon but looked uncertain. I've never. Oh no. Keep it anyway. He checked the external scanners again. They've landed. 2 kilometers north, moving on foot. 3 signatures. 3. Thessa's brow furrowed. Standard patrol is 5. Maybe they split up to cover more ground. No, she shook her head. This isn't standard procedure. This is something else. Hayden considered this. A personal hunt. Possibly. Her expression darkened. The council elder who ordered my cleansing, Varric, he was insistent that I accept his protection after Kevan died. When I refused it, she trailed off. He took it personally, Hayden concluded. That complicates things. Or simplifies them, Thessa countered. Varric is proud. He'll want to handle this himself, minimize witnesses to his failure. Hayden studied the approaching heat signatures. They'll be here within 20 minutes. We need to decide, hide or confront. If we hide and they find us, we have nowhere to run. If we confront them, we need leverage. Thessa's golden eyes narrowed in thought. The children, she began. Stay hidden, Hayden interrupted firmly. Non-negotiable. A look of surprise crossed her face, followed quickly by gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Hayden moved to the storage unit and extracted a small metal case, military issue, sealed with a biometric lock. He pressed his thumb to the scanner, and it hissed open. What is that? Thessa asked, moving closer. Insurance. He removed a small device, no larger than his palm. Prototype jamming field. Disrupts communication and most weapon systems. Designed it myself during the war. That's how you got that scar, she said suddenly, the realization dawning. It malfunctioned. Hayden's hand instinctively rose to the jagged line that ran from temple to jaw. Yes. Early version. Took out half a command center and nearly killed me. This one's more stable. But still experimental. Still dangerous, he corrected. But it gives us options. They worked quickly, preparing the shelter. Hayden reconfigured the security systems while Thessa gathered items that could identify her or her children, a strand of white hair from Niva's makeshift doll, Joritha's carved toy soldier, her own tattered shawl with Navorian markings. As they worked, Hayden found himself watching her, the graceful efficiency of her movements, the quiet determination in her face. She caught him looking once and held his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. You should hide with the children, he said finally. There's no reason for both of us to risk this. Every reason, she countered. They are looking for me, not you. If you face them alone, they'll know immediately something is wrong. And if they recognize you, they won't. She touched her face self-consciously. I've changed since I left. Grief does that. She hesitated, then added, so does freedom. Before Hayden could respond, the proximity alert flashed again. The Navorian patrol had reached the outer perimeter. 1 minute, he said, checking his weapon. Remember the plan. Let me do the talking. Thessa nodded, smoothing her simple tunic. Hayden, she said suddenly, if this goes wrong. It won't. Tell my children I chose this. Tell them I wasn't running away, I was running towards something better. Her eyes locked with his. Tell them I found it. The emotion in her voice caught him off guard. Before he could respond, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the shelter. Showtime. Hayden opened the door, schooling his features into a mask of irritation. 3 Navorians stood outside, 2 tall males in sleek uniformed armor flanking an older one with elaborate silver patterns painted across his blue skin. All 3 had the characteristic golden eyes, but the elders held a coldness that made Hayden's skin crawl. Human, the elder said, his voice smooth and cultured. I am Council Elder Varric of the High Neva Assembly. We seek fugitives from justice. Haven't seen anyone, Hayden replied gruffly. Just me out here. Varric's eyes narrowed. May we enter? This storm grows unpleasant. Hayden hesitated just long enough to seem reluctant, then stepped aside. Make it quick. I value my privacy. The 3 Navorians entered, their tall forms making the shelter seem suddenly smaller. Their eyes scanned every corner with practiced efficiency. You live alone, human? Varric asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Name's Hayden. And yes, just me and the storm. A harsh existence. I prefer it. Varric's lip curled slightly. Yet you seem prepared for company. He gestured to the 4 mugs sitting by the synthesizer. Hayden didn't miss a beat. Supply runner came through yesterday. Bryn. Ask her yourself if you don't believe me. One of the guards moved toward the sleeping area, inspecting it closely. The other approached the storage room door, the one that concealed the hidden compartment where the children hid. What brings Navorian officials to a forgotten outpost? Hayden asked, deliberately drawing attention back to himself. Varric smiled thinly. A matter of family honor. A widow, Vashanti, fled with children who rightfully belonged to their father's clan. It is a disruptive to our social order. Sounds like your problem, not mine. Indeed. Unless you've harbored such fugitives. Varric stepped closer, his height allowing him to look down at Hayden. That would make it very much your problem. The door to Hayden's private quarters slid open, and Thessa emerged. She changed into one of Hayden's spare jumpsuits, her white hair now tied back severely. She carried a data pad and deliberately avoided looking directly at the visitors. Diagnostics are complete on the North Array, she reported clinically. Power fluctuations stabilized. Hayden nodded, playing along. Good. Check the external relays next. Varric's attention snapped to Thessa. Hayden tensed, hand drifting closer to his concealed weapon. Would he recognize her? Your assistant? Varric inquired, his tone deceptively casual. Engineer, Hayden corrected. Contracted through the mining consortium. Been here 3 months working on the grid. Thessa nodded respectfully toward the Navorians but kept her eyes downcast. Sirs, she acknowledged, her accent deliberately altered to sound more human. Varric studied her for a long moment. Hayden could see the calculation in his eyes, the suspicion. Unusual to see one of our kind working so menially, Varric observed. Especially so far from the homeworlds. War changes priorities, Thessa replied simply. Skills matter more than heritage now. The guard near the storage area called out, Elder, the dwelling is secure. No signs of the fugitives. Varric didn't respond immediately, his gaze still fixed on Thessa. Look at me, he commanded suddenly. She raised her eyes slowly, meeting his golden stare with her own. Hayden's hand moved to his weapon, ready. A long, tense moment passed. "You have family on Neva?" Varric asked. "None living," she answered truthfully. Something flickered in Varric's expression, recognition. Doubt. Before he could speak again, a burst of static erupted from his communication device. "Elder," one of the guards said urgently, "detection equipment is registering unusual energy patterns to the south. Possibly a vessel." Varric's focus immediately shifted. Distance. 3 kilometers and closing. Hayden relaxed marginally. The jamming device was working, creating false signatures to draw them away. Varric turned back to Hayden, suspicion clear in his face, but urgency winning out. "Our business is not concluded, human. We will return." "Doors always open," Hayden replied casually. "Though advance notice is appreciated." After they departed, neither Hayden nor Thessa moved until the patrol vessel's engine signature faded completely from the sensors. Only then did Thessa slump against the wall, her composure cracking. "He knew," she whispered. "He recognized me." "But he left," Hayden countered, moving to the hidden compartment to release the children. "Your false signal worked. It only bought us time." Her eyes met his, fear and determination warring within them. "They'll be back, with more guards, more questions." Jurith emerged first, immediately going to his mother's side. "Did they see you?" he asked, his young voice tight with worry. "Yes," she admitted, pulling him close. "But we're safe for now." Niva crawled out next, her small face screwed up with concern. "Did the bad elder try to take your colors again?" "No, little star." Thessa stroked her daughter's hair. "Hayden protected us." The children turned to him then, their golden eyes filled with a trust he hadn't earned and wasn't sure he deserved. It unsettled him, this sudden responsibility. He'd spent years avoiding exactly this connection, obligation, the messy weight of mattering to someone else. "We need to move," he said, pushing aside the uncomfortable warmth in his chest. "They'll be back within hours." "Where can we go?" Thessa asked. "The transport to Verdes isn't for days, and they'll be watching for us now." Hayden moved to the console and pulled up a terrain map. "There's another option. 6 kilometers east, there's an old emergency bunker. Used during the early conflicts. Not on any recent charts. Can we reach it before they return?" "If we leave now." "Pack only what you can carry." As they prepared to depart, Thessa approached him, her voice low enough that the children couldn't hear. "Why are you doing this, Hayden? You could have turned us over. Saved yourself the trouble." He continued checking his supply pack, avoiding her gaze. "Wouldn't be right. Many would disagree." "Many have." Hayden paused, considering his answer. The truth was, he wasn't entirely sure himself why he'd chosen this path. Something about Thessa's quiet strength, the children's resilience, had awakened parts of himself he thought long dead. "I spent years following orders," he said finally. "Doing what was expected. My brother died because of it. At Cygnus Station, I finally refused an order that would have killed civilians." He touched his scar absently. "Cost me everything, but it was the first right thing I'd done in a long time." He met her eyes then. "Maybe I'm trying to make up for lost time." Thessa studied him, her expression softening. "Or perhaps you simply recognized fellow survivors." Before he could respond, a small hand tugged at his sleeve. Niva looked up at him, her golden eyes serious. "Hayden," she said solemnly, "Jurith says we have to leave your warm house. But I want you to come with us." Something in her simple request pierced him more deeply than he expected. He crouched to her level. "I am coming with you," he assured her. "I know a safe place." She nodded, satisfied, then added, "Will it be our new home?" Hayden glanced up at Thessa, who watched the exchange with an unreadable expression. "For now," he answered carefully. "One step at a time." As they prepared to venture into the frozen landscape, Hayden found himself repeatedly checking that everyone was properly equipped, Joritha's boots secured, Niva's thermal wrap fastened correctly, Thessa's pack balanced. Small gestures of care that had become natural without his noticing. Outside, the wind had picked up again, carrying the promise of another storm. But as they set out across the snow, Hayden felt something unexpected, not the familiar weight of solitude, but the strange, forgotten lightness of purpose. Behind them, the shelter, his refuge for 5 lonely years, grew smaller in the distance. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and something he hadn't allowed himself to contemplate in a very long time, possibility.